and Cerys from the YFC Show. Good evening.
Hello.
It's so good to be chatting with you. How are you getting on?
Yeah, I'm doing well. I'll be back in Pembrokeshire now from this weekend, home for Easter. But yeah, I've finished my first year of uni,
Oh, I tell you
technically
what,
officially today.
technically, officially today, I'm going to steal a sound effect from the breakfast show. With it.
Yeah.
Well done. And in fact, you were listening into the last part of us talking about stress and Stress Awareness Month. How have you felt overall in your first year of university?
I think it's very different to, obviously, like you go through GCSEs and A levels. It's a very different kind of stress, because I was talking about this the other day with people I'm like studying with. When you're doing stuff for GCSEs and A levels, you know that like your grades are based on one thing, well, like one exam paper. So when you go to university and you're writing essays like every couple of weeks, and the thing is as well, for me, first year is just about passing and learning what to do. So it's very different kind of stress, because you're like, you want to get it right, whereas at A level it's a stress, it's more of a pressure, I feel, because it's just based on this one sort of exam that's put in front of you.
Yeah, at the end of the year. There's arguably a lot more independence and independent study. And is this what you really want when you're in university? Have you been able to balance that quite quickly?
It's hard to adapt to. I think that was one of the biggest things that I found, was kind of adapting to not having like a teacher in front of you all the time. Whereas when you go to university, it's your responsibility to study and do all the things you need to do. There's no one really there like nagging you to do it. So it's off your own back. But for me, it came like quite naturally. I think I'm the sort of person that would just like adapt to it quite quickly. So I can see where some people do find it quite hard, and then it's just like, it's about getting that support then, and having that support network that you need when you're obviously trying to balance and adjust to a different lifestyle than you'd had before.
I love that. Tammy, some similar themes to what we talked about. Talking, opening up to someone, having support network, shared experiences. It sounds like Cerys is doing all right.
It sounds like she is, actually. And again, yeah, it's congratulations on almost being in year 2.
Yeah.
You know that the radio is going to be giving you a call now. Cerys is, of course, a host of the YFC Show with River Lee once a month on the second Sunday of every month. Your show's coming up this Sunday. A nice little added bit of pressure for you, a bit of stress whilst you've been away learning.
Yeah, I mean, I've been going in between it this week, between uni, varsity, and the YFC Show. I've been in and out of all three. I was sat watching cricket yesterday, messaging people going, when can we schedule this interview, please?
And overall, then we're going to look at younger people's well-being more tightly now. But when things have got on top of you, and it's like, I need to organise that, I need to get your Cardiff, so your red T-shirt for varsity. You've got to do your homework, got to get to your seminar on time. What kind of tools have you used to manage that stress?
I think for me, I kind of set time in the day to just like sit back and go, okay, what have I done and what do I need to do? Because otherwise, if you just keep going and keep going, you just burn out. It's very easy to quickly burn out. So I know that I won't do any work past 9 o'clock at night. That's cut off. Don't do any more. No more. So at that point, then I've got to look like, what have I got to do tomorrow? So if I've got 2 seminars coming up tomorrow, then I know that in the morning I've got to get up and do the reading for that if I haven't got it done already. So it's kind of just like sitting back, reflecting, and then being able then to put something in place to be able to go on and get the things done that you need to do and keep on top of things.
Gosh, you're doing what took me over 20 years to learn. If that 9 o'clock deadline to me, like playing a game of chicken. It's like, how close to 9 o'clock can I wait before I do this? And then, oh, it's 2 a.m. Ah, no. that was my university experience. So well done. We knew you were fantastic anyway. Hayley, Well-being and younger people, that's what we're going to move on to now. We have a bit of a conflab at the end of every show, and we've got a little plan. This was something that we were keen to address. Why, in your opinion, Hayley, is this something that's important to... Well, I suppose I've kind of semi-answered it. Because it takes time to learn these things, I assume. But what was it that brought it to your forefront, Hayley?
I just think every generation says, we had it tough and it was, our generation was the hardest. But actually, with all the pressures in, the teens, the next 2 generations down, I think the pressures are so immense with social media, with trying to be something that you're not, with all the pressure to be perfect because of what's on social media, to keep up with social media, to be in with this gang and that gang, or however it works. I just think it's such a different place and a difficult place to grow up now than when I grew up. And I straddle a time when we didn't have social media, and I know what it's like to have social media, and the contrast is huge.
Tammy?
Well, I just echo what Hayley said. Being a teenager, young person today just involves navigating just such a complex world, full of unique challenges, as well as opportunities. It's not all that it's not all negative. Including technological advancement, evolving social norms or kind of contradicting social norms, that increased pressure. Academic-wise, the increased pressure of future careers, and also in the mix of it all, trying to prioritise our mental and physical well-being. There just seems to be so much that young people need to be navigating.
Yeah. Cerys, you're in a room with a millennial and 2 other generations that I'm not sure of, who saw the world before the availability of technology that we have and the transition of the non-technology to technology that we have. But of course, for you, it's all you've known.
I mean, kind of. I feel like growing up, like as a kid, you kind of, because I was born, don't want to, every time I say the year I was born, I make people feel old, but 2006. Like, being born in like 2006, and then growing up, you kind of, like, things were developing. Like, I can remember 2014, 15, 16, you had like the iPod. Like, the iPod was the in thing. And then I kind of grew up as technology was kind of like iPhones became more of a big thing. And then obviously you had things like Instagram, then Snapchat, and back in the day Musical.ly, which is now TikTok. So that was the first sort of social media experience I'd ever had, was Musical.ly. And back then it was only like comedy skits and dance videos. Like, it wasn't like the platform that it is today, where it's like influencer kind of lifestyle. But I think for me, looking back at it, I think COVID was massive in shaping like my growing up experience, because it was like 2 years of my life. And even like going up to like when I was doing my A levels, there was still implications of things because of COVID when I was doing my ASs, which was 2023. So I think I'm kind of grown up in an age where technology is developing. And I just think now, if I was 13 or 14 now, everything's completely different to when I was 13 or 14. And that was only, 4 or 5 years ago.
And of course, during that COVID time, you were saying you were already in secondary school. You were already aiming towards AS and A levels and your future. But of course, what COVID also did was the generation below you were introduced to technology that much younger again. And we're looking at primary school children being taught by these influencers, and let's be honest, who actually really knew what was going on whilst you were working. And we're not apportioning any judgment or guilt to anyone. We're just saying that was the reality that a lot of people had to work through. Cerys, you're part of the YFC. You get to see these span of ages that are both younger than you and older than you. What kind of what's been said within the halls of the different groups, or what kind of characteristics do you see that you think, gosh, I wouldn't have done that, or that's really amazing. Look how mature that person is, and their outlook on life. What are some of the themes that come out?
I think it's definitely looking back at people who are younger than me. There's some things I think, wow, I would not have been exposed to that at like 12 or 13. There's so many things, like social media in some ways can be good, but other things like you hear people come out with and you're like, I was not thinking of that at 13. And it's because obviously I'm sort of in the middle of the YFC age, so you've got from 10 to 18 is junior, and then you've got intermediate and senior, and then you see the senior age groups, they don't feel indifferent to the intermediate age group. But if they look back at obviously the kids who are coming through the movement, it's a very different, they've had a different growing up experience. It's kind of reflected in especially their habits on social media. That's one of the biggest things you can see with younger people coming through YFC now, definitely.
Yeah. Hayley.
I do think, social media is good, but I think it was designed, and I don't know if you've watched Social Dilemma, it was designed to hook everybody who touches it. And it does the job extremely well. But I think calling it social was just an amazing idea, because people assume it's innocent. And I think children, it's easy to give the phones to children. I was talking to somebody last week who they'd gone on holidays, and the buggy of the baby that was sitting next to them in a bar had a phone holder on them. So they bought an extension phone holder. So the baby can't have been more than a month old, already glued to the phone. And
Gosh.
that breaks my heart, that does, because I was saying today, I had a meeting today with somebody in Texas, and we were saying that children are not getting the same level of eye contact and not getting the same level of physical contact, because once you switch your phone on, they're stopping crying, and now there's no need to hug. And I think, if you start really young with that, look what happens when they get to teenage years, when they don't know how to relate to people physically, emotionally, mentally. And yet we're then throwing children out and saying, go and live in the big wide world. That's really scary.
Mm. And of course, the big wide world doesn't necessarily look as glossy as these curated pieces of information that are on these little screens. Tammy, a young person not fully developed and like trying to figure themselves out in the world, and the thing that they're comparing themselves with most is arguably very highly edited and a snapshot of the reality of life.
Yeah, no, absolutely, and it is. I've got different. Yeah, my views on it are just, online. Young people. They're communicating in ways that most, adults completely miss. And like you say, it can give that fake, that fakeness. It's not real. And with maturity as adults, we recognize that. But young people, impressionable young people, what looks innocent could have a much darker meaning. That said, I also want to say, being online, we go back to COVID that we just mentioned. During COVID, we saw just, Facebook groups just, spring up, just bringing communities together, just arranging food parcels and, collecting, medication. So, there's a narrative for both. But as a young person now, especially what you've seen in the last few years, Cerys, the change has been huge.
Yeah. Cerys, have you got? I don't want you to name anyone, but have you seen examples of some people that you thought, I know who this person is, I know who I am in this world and this relativity amongst us and the journey of life. It happens anyway. Like I barely talked to who I was best friends with back in school because our lives took a different path. and that's okay. But has there been something about like a worldly view that's come out of through consumption of information that's changed it? It's not just a lifestyle change; it's the consumption of information.
I think for me, like looking at people who I've gone to school with and they've taken a different, like you said, different path to what I have. Like obviously, whatever career people go on to is like their own choice, whether they go to university, they stay, do apprenticeship, or go traveling. That's the one thing I've found is seeing people go traveling to say Australia or in Southeast Asia, and you think, oh, is that something that I want to do? Have I done the wrong thing? And it's very easy to, because people will just post a snapshot of what they think is and like a glossy, amazing example of their experience. And it's like, I could post a load of pictures of, say, university, for example, and say, oh, this is like so brilliant, and I've done this, this, and this. But equally, it's not a full reflection, because you know that you've been doing hard work and graft. Like behind the scenes is very much like a focused view. And I think that's what easily influences people. And there's so many people now who want to become like influencers. Like when I was 10, 11, like you just had like YouTube influencers. Like they just go and shop in Primark and they go, I got this t-shirt, I got that t-shirt. And it's very much like the early makings of it. But now you see people, and I think it sprung up more so in COVID, is people who want to influence what people do, their diets, what they buy, what they eat. Everything is influenced by people just making videos being like, oh, what I eat in a day, or here's what I'm wearing today, here's what I'm doing today. Like it's so easy to sort of indoctrinate in a way people into living like this glossy lifestyle, and it can just like overwhelm you and just make you think like, is this what I want, or am I just being, you get to a point where you're just like, am I just being influenced by what I'm seeing online?
Yeah. How do you balance that then, Cerys? Because influencer, it's taken over. Back in our day, the top of the career polls was always, what was it, bank, lawyer, engineer, if you had a bit of a science background, and that they were kind of your career choices. They've all been taken over now by sports star and influencer are the things that people want to become more of. As someone that consumes that information, what are you doing and what are your friends doing to be like, actually, no, that's only a dose of the reality that I live in? Like, how do you manage that?
I think you have to sort of like look at it with the mindset of, as you get older, I think that's why it's so easy for like younger teenagers to like become like obsessed with this influence culture. Because when you look at it when you're older, if I was looking at the things I see now on social media when I was 14, I know I'd have a completely different outlook to what I have now. It's a lot about maturing and like having these conversations and being like, okay, well, you have to look at it retrospectively and realize that actually not everything you see online is going to be like as perfect as it's made out. It's just very much about a maturing, and it's your own like personal thing. I think you can't just look at it as a general thing. It's more about how you feel as a person and what people around you, and whether you're engaging in these conversations, for example.
Tammy, coming to you, who's going to help distinguish between entertainment, reality, influence, indoctrination? How are we going to carve out these opportunities to actually reflect on what we're observing?
I think we've all got a role to play. I don't think it's just one particular person. I think we've all got a responsibility to keep, I suppose, our safe spaces safe, to make sure that the younger generation actually know that there is that element of fakeness, that it's not real, and to kind of like just separate it. I mean, it's great to go on, it's great to look at, but just to remember that it's not reality. So I think we've all got a role to play. So whether that's family members, whether it's education, health providers, I think we all need to actually speak about it more.
Hayley, you've already mentioned, it's designed to keep us hooked. Just as we can become addicted to other methods and means, there's going to be some form of withdrawal there potentially. How can we help manage that, even with support from other people? Because we're going to be craving that scroll and that hit and that short form video, and we're going to keep going. Then all of a sudden, if we linger too long on one video of a certain type, then we're going to find something else that's similar, and then we're going to find something else that's similar. And it always seems to be the downward spiral, not necessarily an upward spiral of the good things in life. What can we do if our brain is saying, I need to see more of this? Can you believe that person said that about that? It might be completely fabricated, but you're invested now.
Yeah, absolutely. I think grounding people in the real world is so important. So when my eldest was the first to have a phone in his school, so he was 8 when he had it was a flip phone, but it had like that stupid snake thing on it. So there was no social media, but I was aware of social media when he had it. I'd done a personal safety course in Women's Aid at the time. And there were a few stories that came out of that training, and I knew at that point I was going to undermine social media. So I set about undermining social media completely. All the experiments the kids would bring to me, we would do the experiments, follow the step-by-step guide on these programs, on these Instagram and things, and they wouldn't work out. And the kids were like, well, we've done everything. So they kind of lost trust in social media being a safe space. And this is the problem. We have made, when you give a phone to your child, you are making social media a safe space. You are telling them the phone and social media are a safe space. And I think that's a huge issue. So I also then set about telling the kids, right, go outside the door, wooden door, can't see through it, and pretend to be somebody else. And that's what social media is. When you are speaking to somebody, you have no idea. They could be 50, they could be whatever. And I honestly believe that's why my children are really good at managing whatever comes up on social media. So as much as they are invested, they love TikTok, they love it, they love Instagram, they love Snapchat. But when I've had to take their phones off them because of behavior or whatever, never had the backlash, because they were always grounded. They never fully trusted social media, so it was never a safe space for them, which it is for children now. I don't know if you agree with that, Cerys. Social media has become that space where I don't fit in the world, and now I fit somewhere on social media. But also influencers have become the parents. So if we can ground children in the real world, and we can show them what the real world has to offer and allow them to experience that, I'm not saying it's going to work 100% of the time, but you have to balance the real world and the fake world and show that actually it's nowhere near as safe as you think it is.
What are your thoughts on that, Cerys?
I think, obviously, like growing up with kind of social media, I got social media when I was 12, 13. I think how I've grown up with it is very different to how kids grow up with it nowadays, because they see, like, for me, obviously I remember like having not a childhood, but like going out and doing stuff on the farm, for example, or like I was very lucky to be able to go out and do these things. Whereas a lot of kids nowadays, like we said earlier, about having a phone in front of them on a buggy, like screens, and like I know kids now that are asking for Snapchat at like 8 years old. And it's so difficult. And I think one of the biggest things as well is regulating like what people consume as well. It's like, how do you, if your child is 8 years old on a social media platform, That's a lot of trust in an 8-year-old to like on what they're consuming as well. And I know you said earlier about expectations and kind of reality of like videos on Instagram, for example. I remember when I was this was in lockdown, me and my mum tried to do a nail art video. We'd seen it on Facebook and she was like, we'll try it. And we must have tried at least 5 times, like in about 10-15 minutes, trying to do it on like each separate nail, and it never worked. It's just so everything I think the mindset you have to have is everything is very glossy, and it's only what people, that's the main thing to take away from it, is that people will post on social media what they want you to see. If they want you to see that they're having a good time, then they're going to post about all of the things that were good and all of the things that they did that they enjoyed, not anything that's going on behind the scenes. And I think that is the biggest thing you have to sort of look at.
Yeah. For those that don't share your outlook, do you think there's a risk that they're watching these and, I can't replicate that perfect nail art video, I can't make that perfect banana bread? Do you think that I can't look like that in my favourite bikini or one piece? How much does that contribute to low self-esteem and body image, because you're constantly getting the glossy side of it?
Yeah, I know when I was in youth parliament, that was one of the big things that a lot of people spoke about, was body image and social media. When I was in secondary school, there was a lot of, it became more of a thing, and I was more hyper aware that a lot of people were developing body image issues and eating disorders because of things they were seeing online. And I know that people would post like workout videos, and it's like, lose X amount of weight in X amount of time, and people would be like, they'll try it because they want to look a certain way, and then it just, like you said earlier, it's a downward spiral. You get more and more things related to that thing. The algorithm is a massive thing in shaping what young people see, and if you see one thing or you engage in one video, then you're going to get 2 videos, and if you get 2 videos, you're going to get 4 videos, and it just goes down and down and down. And I think it's very hard to get out of that mindset, but it is possible. I think more and more influencers should sort of focus on being real. I think that is something that needs to be sort of popularized, as being real and telling people about, well, you might have done this today, but actually I did this and it wasn't great, or I had a bit of a wobble here. It's being real and being a real person, and not a sort of glossy version. I think that's something that would definitely help for people who are going into these rabbit holes on social media.
I love that, because the rabbit hole ends up could potentially create someone's identity through no fault of their own, just because of what they're consuming. And of course, there's been Adolescence, the Netflix series, where very young people are being influenced by an array of different people, and then that becomes their identity, that they'll go to great lengths to kind of do the bidding, as it were, because of, well, actually, this is who I am, and you're that. You've seen it, haven't you, Cerys?
Yeah, I watched it the day it came out, and all of my friends also watched it. We all sat and watched the whole thing. And growing up and going through specifically a British secondary school, I feel like a lot of it's a more of a very much like British thing. I know some American people are watching it, obviously, because it's on Netflix as a streaming platform, but I think a lot of people can resonate with it, because not only is it a very reflective experience of going through the education system in the UK, it's also reflective of these sort of rabbit holes and spirals that people can go down, and again, through no fault of their own, and be exposed to quite hateful things. And it might not necessarily mean that originally they felt this way constantly, like originally that they felt this hateful about a certain group of people, or they felt hateful towards an individual. It's very much like you kind of get sucked in, and it's so good at explaining how, well, it is a massive problem in the UK.
Yeah,
it's totally honest.
And how that manifests. Hayley, you've seen it.
I have a completely different perspective. So a lot of people, I think, were quite traumatized by the content. So I worked in domestic violence, so the content itself didn't have the same impact on me. So it wasn't something I focused on. What caught me was the scene when the parents were in the bedroom at the end, and Dad says, we can't, something along the lines of, we can't regulate what he watches in his bedroom. And that frustrated me a lot, because we can. And I really think parents have given up their power over their children. I don't mean that in a control way, but they've given up their influence and their power to social media, and they don't know how to get it back. And I just found that we are feeling, as parents, we are feeling powerless, but it's us who's doing that. And that's what I've come away from with adolescents, is that us as parents, we have a duty to keep our children safe, not in the way what they're doing now. They're trying to ban certain personalities on social media. That person is one of millions of people saying the same thing. If you don't keep your children away from social media is going to get your children. And I remember hearing somebody say, you think that giving your phone is giving your children access to the world, but actually it's giving the world access to your child. Oof, that for me was really powerful, because that's a very, very different angle, isn't it?
Very much so. Tammy, what have been your thoughts?
I just think I agree with what Hayley has said there. I just think adolescent has, it's pulled back the curtain on something that every parent, guardian, carer, educator needs to know, need to be aware of. I agree that as parents, it can be that easy option to give them a phone, and to leave them to their own devices. Not in the same room. It's enabling, and it is about taking that power back, or having boundaries. But at the same time, we can't be there even when we have those moderations in place, when we have boundaries in place. And speaking as a mum, speaking as a professional, I think, we also need to be encouraging those conversations with our children, with our young people, and using this series or similar series as a starting point for those conversations. Open-ended conversations, open-ended questions. That light touch. But I do think it paves the way for those discussions.
Yeah, it's like, oh, we need to sit down and have the talk, but it's not the birds and the bees. It's the how are you talking to your friends and neighbours. And adolescence it shows the extreme. Hayley's just referenced that some individuals, they're trying to ban them from these platforms, but that's just one in a million of other people that are saying the same things, which led to it can lead to huge consequences for individuals. But of course, your everyday child is still partaking in some kind of undercurrent of language which has evolved underneath our noses through that of emojis. And we may have thought these things when we were growing up, but our interactions with our friends were that fewer and far between. It was when the sun was up and at the weekend. Whereas now, if you've got a snap streak with your mate that's over 200 long or 1,000 long, then you've got to keep up that pretense, and you've got to keep chatting, and you've got to keep sending these hearts and these different emojis. And Cerys, it's a whole underworld.
I knew that some of the emojis had different meanings before adolescence, but the extent of how many emojis there are and the different meanings they have, and a lot of them are quite hateful. I think that was one of the things that I realized. I knew that hearts had different meanings, all the different colored hearts had different meanings. I never knew like what they were. I was just like, oh, I like the green one, or I like the pink one. It was never like there was no underlying message with it. Whereas now there's so much that's sort of evolved, and like I'm 19, and in the space of a couple of years, this has just become like a massive thing with young people. And I thought like, oh, is it just maybe being like dramatized? And I was like, no, the amount of people who were like, yeah, no, that is the meanings of them, and that's how people use them. I was confused more than anything as to how this has sort of developed. I was stunned, to be honest.
Yeah, well, so am I. And I think about just how, as I say, as Tammy and Henry said, just how readily available that access is to send. And of course, we're talking young ages here. When I was my niece's age, I barely talked to anyone. I'd only just started playing football in the playground. I just didn't have that kind of contact with people. I lived in a tiny village by the sea. So if I wanted to see anyone, it was literally just in school. And we had no devices to talk to each other outside of that until instant messenger came around. And even then, you had to sit at the PC with your dial-up, and then you could only use it if mum wasn't on the phone. And mum used to have the longest phone conversations on the planet. So it just wasn't a factor. And now there's a whole subculture of all this going on. And I mentioned my mum there. How would have I have felt if my mum was to come up to me and try and have these open-ended conversations that Tammy felt? Hayley, you've already said that you've addressed it quite early on. You'd be like, that's reality, that's not. You need to assess what you're viewing and put that into your reality. It sounds like you took the bull by the horns and you did that from, like, you recognized it quite early.
Yeah, I I've been unfortunate to work in quite dark spaces. So I was aware of what I felt I wanted to speak to my children about. Although social media has forced conversations which I did not want to have with my children in their teenage years. But you asked about your mum there. How would I have felt if my mother had done the same? I'd have been horrified. Absolutely horrified. My mother came to me and said, we need to talk about this. But I think I laid the foundation. So I have a different relationship with my kids because we talk. I've made a point of talking about anything, and I mean anything. So you can think about anything that a child might ask in any realm of the world. That conversation is on the table, and we've literally had it around the table. My dad has been embarrassed many a time. And I think that's been, part of the key with us is that we've been able to talk about even things that are embarrassing for me. I have to swallow my embarrassment because I've made a point of saying every topic is a topic to talk about.
Yeah. Now, Tammy's got a list of things that as a parent you can lean towards in and how you can help get to this point. But Cerys, that question back to you. Have you had that kind of conversation with your parents, or even as someone in that middle group with the younger groups and some of the YFC groups? Because you seem to be very wise, Cerys.
I think I've never really had the conversation with my parents. I think because it's like they have asked what are you watching online, and I think there is a level of trust that you're not watching something that you maybe shouldn't have been watching. But equally, I was just interested in watching cooking videos. Really love cooking videos. I don't know. I was just think that everything's evolved, and I think social media over time has become more and more toxic. I think for me, just looking on, and you see kids in YFC now, and they kind of the stuff that they're talking about or that they're seeing online is, like I said earlier, so drastically different. And I think it is important. I know that I think the government are making adolescents available for all secondary schools in the UK to view. And I think it's good, but I think it should also be available to other youth groups, because I think it's quite an awkward place to have that conversation in school. It's very like static and just very rigid. I think especially for kids coming to YFC, they're more likely to be open about things because they're in an environment where they're enjoying themselves and they trust people, and they've got older role models who aren't necessarily like teachers who are like obviously are doing their job. They're with like their peers. And I think it should be something that is drawn upon in youth groups as well as schools, definitely.
Yeah, because you'd like to think that the youth groups and your kind of your family and your friend relationships, what the end game for those groups is fantastic personal development of an individual basis, whereas some of these influences, the end game isn't about fantastic personal development. It's arguably about bank balance development, and let's cause an us and them rift, because then if I get so many over here, then they're my camp, and then I can keep that marketing game going, and then I keep influence, and I keep myself nice and happy without caring about the individuals involved. Within those youth groups and within those families and within those schools, you might think, I don't know how I'm going to approach this. Tammy, you've put together or you've got a list of things that we can do to try and help formulate these conversations. And let's be honest, it's probably going to be awkward for a little while, and we might hear things that we don't want to hear, but actually that's okay.
Yeah, because it wouldn't be about us. It's about having that conversation. So it's about getting curious, but not being, you're not going into combat. It's about, again, those open-ended questions, that light touch, even down to, and it sounds cringing to say, but just to even like creating like a judgment-free zone. I don't know how it looks, but it's just as a starting point. Just where people, where young people can feel open, they can open up without being punished, without being judged, without being lectured. Even down to just, decoding the world together, asking them really just in layman's terms to explain their digital world. We can even draw on the fact that, we are so many decades older, for example, and we don't know what the symbols mean. What do they mean? And that we don't want to assume. We need to ask. We want to just be able to like teach that critical thinking, help them question online content, and as Cerys touched on, when we look at social media, it's that perceived perfection, and this perception is that key word there. It's about, checking in on online spaces, as a part of normal parenting, and not just as a crisis move. We don't, leave things to the last minute or the worst case scenario. And I know, Hayley, you've spoken about that a lot. We wait until there is a problem before we actually try and solve it. Let's actually have these conversations continuously. And even just, treating young people, recognizing the fact that they do understand, and that, they're not stupid, and explain how toxic online groups can groom, can groom peers, can groom them. It's about just conversations. But I will share this with Pure West, just so as a resource, really.
Yeah, we can house all of this on the Pure West Radio Healthy Minds page at purewestradio.com. If you're interested in trying to have those conversations, maybe you didn't have that when you were growing up. So the thought of doing it with your children is the scariest thing in the world. It's like, oh, how is this going to end? But just kind of go through it just step by step, and have that inquiry, have that inquisitiveness about what you're going to find. Don't have an outcome ready to go, I suppose, is something that's really important to hold on to, isn't it? Don't have an outcome, just have curiosity as that lead magnet. And Hayley, hopefully that might help naturally develop the conversation, and then it means that if something was to happen untoward further down the line, there's already a dialogue that's open. Do you remember a couple of weeks ago when we had that really terrible conversation and we all got both very shy about it? Well, actually, this has happened since. There's something about curiosity that's wonderful.
Yeah, and being curious together as well, as you said, is, asking questions around what's it like? What happens? I say things with my children. I hear my children saying things, and we had something this week where one of the friends said something, and you're like, "Don't go and check it out. They're not telling you what it is." So I naturally went to check it out. Luckily, I am not squeamish, but I think we need to build those relationships again to get into a position where we can have those conversations and be curious together. We have to build those relationships, which I think we have a lot of disconnection in the world. So as the guides and the leaders, as the parents, as the adults, it's our responsibility to be offering that kind of safe space to create those relationships.
Yeah. Over on Instagram, thank you for this. It's really helpful. So I think that we've touched on a topic that I think people will be watching back and thinking, that's one way I can approach it, which is wonderful. Just because it can feel that you're just stuck. It was like they've got more of a relationship with their phone. If I take the phone off them, then all of a sudden I'm the bad guy. And then how are we supposed to then get out of this rut then of it's just punishment and that power relationship again, Hayley, but not necessarily exercised in a way that's actually going to lead to proactive conversation?
Yeah, I think if we remember, as teenagers, they are supposed to be separating from us. That's the natural progress, isn't it? Or progression, I should say, is that they are going to find their own community, their own social networks. And we're supposed to take a back seat. But I'm feeling like we've taken a back seat at like 7 and 8 now. And we need to be kind of more engaged until they're ready to take a back seat, or they're ready for us to take a back seat. And I don't know, parenting is hard, right? But social media is making it 10 times or maybe even 100 times harder. But we don't have to buy into that as early as we are now. Let's get talking. I think talking is a huge tool that we kind of don't use half enough for, particularly intergenerational. We're not talking, older people are not talking to younger people. There's some division around it. Families are disconnected, so we have parents and children not speaking. And I think we need to bring that communication back away from social media and technology.
Yeah. I do agree with you. However, I'm going to make a point which is completely contrary to what you just said. Cerys, some of the benefits of social media as someone who's from Pembrokeshire but is studying away, I imagine there's a few benefits to it too.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, for me, one of the biggest ones that I found, which is so random and I never expected it, but very quickly on my first day, is especially living in like university residences, there's no service. So I have to use WhatsApp every day to call my parents. So that's one of the things that, I mean, I've sort of used social media for since being in university. But not only that, there's so much, like, a lot of information for stuff that goes on in the university. And, like, I mean, I found 4 of my flatmates for university on a Facebook group. So kind of found them, and then it was like we met one of my flatmates and we were like, oh, like, did you not see any posts? He was like, no, I didn't bother. So some people like tend to take a step back from it, but it was so helpful in finding people who were like doing the same course as me. For example, one of my best friends now, Lucy, we met because she put on like Instagram or something, is anybody doing history in Cardiff? I was like, oh yeah, I am, and now we're living together next year. So it's very much like good for that and sort of the general keeping in touch with people. But equally, I think one of the biggest things I found was a lot of people tend to scam and tend to sort of, again, put up this sort of fake persona on social media. So you kind of have to sort of, again, look at the positives and the negatives, but it was really helpful, especially going to university. Yeah.
I love that I bring up a question about the benefits, and you couldn't even finish a paragraph
I know.
without saying, "Be careful, though. Be careful," which is the point that we're making, is that yes, it can be a wonderful resource, but be careful. I suppose that is the fundamental thing, Hayley.
It is. It's got its uses, isn't it? Social media has improved some things, right? It's just how we use it that hasn't. So we can use it for good stuff. We can use it for communication. We can use it for being in Cardiff and speaking to people in Pembrokeshire. We can use it for being on the other side of the world and speaking to people. We can also use it for growth and development as well. So how you choose to use it, that's the key, isn't it? You can use it for whatever, but you do have to be extremely mindful. And I think we are maybe learning that lesson now in a hard way, maybe.
And if you do find yourself in a position of influence, remember what Spider-Man said: with great power comes great responsibility. You are shaping the future generations of people that are going to be ruling this planet that we live on with our friends and neighbors. So just be wary of that. Social media, Cerys, I'm sure has helped you keep in touch with all of your young farmers, both near and far. And of course, you help bring the young farmers to our listeners at Pure West Radio with the YFC Show with River Lee.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I got into Pure West because I'd see stuff on social media. So, I mean, that is one big positive that does come with it. So I can bring a positive to the conversation. But no, it is massive in keeping young farmers connected. And especially, again, during COVID, there was so much going on to keep, especially because farming is and the rural community is such an isolated place that there is the danger of becoming more and more isolated, but definitely has been influential. And I mean, one of the biggest and quite possibly the best things that has come out of YFC in recent years is having access to social media.
Amazing. And your next show is this coming Sunday?
Yes.
What have you got lined up for us?
Going to be talking about the recent field day, which was held last weekend at Scolton Farm. We'll be chatting to some of the winners, including Charlotte, who won the Young Stockman of the Year, which is a massive achievement. It's one of the sort of pinnacle stockbreeding events of the year. And also looking forward to Rally, which is just over a month away, which is quite scary, actually.
How's that come around so quickly?
I was talking about this today with Gethin. I did an interview with him as well. And he was like, "Oh, Rally's in a month." And I was like, "What?
What you talking about?"
I was like, "No, it's not. It's still like January."
Wow, time is ticking. And of course, Dan Morgan, I don't think I'm crossing lines here. He was talking to Toby last week.
Yes, I know. And Dan is another person who, and I mean, is hugely influential within the YFC community and is pretty much a YFC influencer in some ways. But no, yeah, me and Dan are somehow gone from junior and senior member of the year in Pembrokeshire in 2022 to both being in the same city, which is ridiculous. I don't know how we've managed that.
But it has, which means that only marvellous things can happen. And you will find out those marvellous things if you tune in on Sunday morning at 9 o'clock. You can listen back to other YFC shows at purewestradio.com. That's the YFC show with River Lee and our very own Cerys. Cerys, we've kept you talking for so long because I'll be honest, it's just been really interesting to get your perspective on it. I know that you weren't working because it's gone 9 o'clock. That's your non-negotiable. So thank you for spending your time chatting with us instead. Hayley and Tammy, we've got this lovely piece that we've got coming up about AI, a different kind of internet beast that's taking over at the moment. But again, it can have positive uses. We're going to hear how it's been helping the NHS in its formative years of use of AI, which is very interesting. And I'm going to fast forward us to next month. And it kind of links in very closely to what we've been talking about here. We've got it penciled down, our little thing. Hayley, pranks.
Oh, not my favourite thing on social media. I will be ranting. I don't like them. But, you know, what we've talked about today in terms of influence, that's a huge influence on relationships now. So I think we probably do a little bit of talking about relationships and I love a good prank, but this thing about the relationship thing with pranks, I know. I know. Not happy.
We're going to dig deep into that, as well as, Tammy, defining happiness and creating it.
Oh, I can't wait to delve into that and to explore different people's formula for happiness and creating it. And I'm really excited about the show already.
Yeah, if you've got any thoughts on these two things that we've just mentioned, pranks and defining happiness, we would love to hear from you. Email us right now, studio@purewestradio.com, and you could help formulate the next show, which, if my calendar loads in time, is going to be... It's the second Thursday of every month. It's going to feel really early again, guys. It's going to be on the 8th of May.
Oh, wow.
Oh, wow.
So we're going to go to sleep, we're going to blink, and we'll find ourselves already here next month. And yeah, please do get in touch. We're going to hand over to this, to the AI helping the NHS. Tammy, Hayley, thank you so much again for your insight, your experience in bringing these topics alive. We started off talking about Stress Awareness Month. And filling up your stress bucket, relieving your stress bucket, how it manifests and what we can do about it. And then we've just said goodnight to Cerys, who gave up a lot of her time this evening to give her perspective and of those of her generation of growing up in this modern world. And it's complex, Tammy.
It's really complex, and it's just the challenges that young people today have to navigate. Whilst whether it's just their learning, whether it's academia, whether it's just social media in general, even down to just mental health and their physical well-being. But interestingly, and I think what I just want to kind of leave on is that it's important to use social media in a healthy way and in a balanced way. But also being aware that there is, potential negative impacts that can happen as well.
Yeah, and Hayley, Tammy gave us some wonderful methods and techniques as the grown-ups can try and approach. And even if it's awkward at first, you never know what light there might be at the end of that tunnel.
No, and I think we talk a lot, don't we? We talk a lot on this show, but we all talk a lot. But it's focusing that talk on being a bit more intentional on what you want out of the conversation with your children. And I think once you get used to it takes a little while for people who are uncomfortable with it. But once you get used to it can be a lot of fun, but it can be really shocking when you open that thing with teenagers. It can be a little bit shocking.
I sense there's some stories there, but we'll save them for another time.
Don't think they're for radio.
Thank you so much once again for joining us, for the comments that we've had. We've had Aidan with us. We had Instagram with us. We have Ben with us. And so thank you from the bottom of our heart. We love putting this show on and providing a little bit of, hopefully, a different perspective to help you approach maybe a block or a hurdle that you've had that's been a struggle. And we want to help you. And if you want our insight in anything, health, well-being, whatever it might be, physical, we want to get the guests on to support you. We want to upskill ourselves, and you can shape the show by emailing studio@purewestradio.com. It is Thursday night. It's coming up to 11:15. It's Feel Good Friday tomorrow. I'll be on the breakfast show with Abs. The playlist will be yours. So in the meantime, have a very good night, and I'll be back on the airwaves tomorrow morning. Thank you, Tammy. Thank you, Hayley.
No, thank you, and see you very soon. Yeah.
This World Health Day, attention turns to the growing strain